Chapter 17 Cowboys Don't Cry by Marilyn Halvorson. I poured on every ounce of power that bike had. The faster, the better. Even if I didn't know where I was going, I wanted to get there in a hurry. The wind stung my bruised cheek, and a flash of anger swept over me at the thought of Dad hitting me like that. Then I thought about what I'd hit him with, and the guilty ache that swelled up in my throat hurt a lot worse than my face ever had. I didn't want to think any more. Not yet, anyway. I tried to concentrate on the road instead. There's a curve just past Sutherland's place, with a low spot on the right shoulder that always fills up with rainwater and makes a big, gooey mud puddle. I remembered it just in time and swung around the curve to miss the mud hole. I swung a little too wide. The car was green. It had a crack in the left headlight, and it was dirty. Time seemed to hang there for hours as those details imprinted themselves on my mind. But really, there was no time, not even enough to get scared. I'm going to hit, I thought, almost calmly, and in that same split second I heard a sickening thump. I didn't feel anything, or if I did, I don't remember it. I guess I was knocked out because I don't remember falling or anything. But I wasn't out for long because the next thing I knew, I heard a car door slam and a lady I'd never seen before was running towards me, bawling her head off. I wondered what she was crying about. She looked okay to me, but it was beginning to register that I probably wasn't okay. I still didn't feel anything, and that scared me worse than any amount of pain would have. I must have been in shock because my thinking was kind of irrational. I could taste blood, and I was sure that meant I'd knocked all my teeth out. All I could think of was that I'd have to go to the dentist, and that really upset me. When it comes to dentists, I'm just pure chicken. I'm scared spitless of them. Always have been. I don't trust them. How do I know one of them won't let a drill slip and bore a hole in my lip or something? Then I saw that show, Marathon Man, where the spies tortured the guy by drilling his teeth full of holes. It sounded all too believable to me. The other thing that was really bothering me was that I was freezing cold. I read somewhere that you get cold when you're dying, and that scared me. But finally, I got my wits together enough to open my eyes again and really look the situation over. The good part of that was that I found out I wasn't necessarily feeling cold and clammy because I was dying. It was probably because I was lying right in the middle of the mud hole I'd been trying to miss. The bad part was that I got a good look at my left leg and the one that had hit the front of the car. The angle of my foot alone would have been enough to tell me I'd busted the leg. Okay, I could accept that. People bust their legs every day. But then I took a closer look at my ankle and remembered that I wasn't wearing red socks. That was my leg. I caught a glimpse of a splinter of white bone sticking out. It looked just like the bone in Angel's leg. I don't know if it was all the blood I'd swallowed or looking at the leg, but that's when I threw up. The next few minutes are pretty confused in my mind. I don't remember seeing any more of the lady who'd hit me. I had a dim, panicky feeling that maybe she'd just run away and left me there. But I found out later that she'd just gone to Sutherland's to phone an ambulance. I lost track of time in there, but it must have been only minutes later that Sutherland's van screeched to a stop at the edge of the road. When I opened my eyes, their whole family was there. Casey was crying. I wanted her to stop, but I couldn't think of anything to say to her. Her dad was looking even more worried than usual. It's funny what really sticks in my mind about the whole scene. Even though I was only about half conscious, what I do remember is still clear as if I was watching it all flash by on television. And the part that I remember best was that Mrs. Sutherland was wearing her white pants. She waded out into that muddy water and got them all soaking wet and smeared up with mud and blood. I felt really bad about that, but I thought she should have known better than to wear white pants to an accident. Then she was kneeling beside me, talking to me, the same way I'd talked to Angel. She unbuckled my helmet and carefully lifted it off and set it on the ground. It was bright red, like the bike, and brand new, but it didn't look new any more. It was all muddy like everything else. But even though the mud, you could see the big dent in it and the scratches in the paint. I remember that I'd almost thrown it away instead of jamming it on when I roared out of the yard. That bashed in part would have been my head. I felt a little sicker just thinking about it. Mrs. Sutherland had her arm around me, and she was still talking. I don't remember a thing she said. I thought once she was crying, but I must have been wrong because she's not the crying kind. I was too sick and scared to care, just as long as she kept holding me. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I kept wondering where Dad was. He should be there. There was some reason why he wasn't, but I couldn't remember what it was. I needed him. He should be there. I must have passed out for a while then, because I remember opening my eyes and finding myself looking right at Dad. He was there. I was glad he was there, but for some reason I was kind of surprised to see him. He had a blanket in his hand and he reached out and started to wrap it around me. He's going to pick me up, I thought, panicking. No, don't do that, Dad. Don't let anybody move me. The first shock had worn off some, and now I was starting to hurt. As long as I lay perfectly still and didn't let myself think about it, the pain wasn't too bad, but I had a feeling that it was there, just out of reach, waiting to break loose if I let my guard down, or if I moved, even a little. No, Dad, please don't make me move. Just be here with me. That's all I need. I wanted to say that to him. It was all planned that way in my head, but it was real hard to talk. I swallowed, shivering as I tasted blood again. Don't touch me, Dad, I muttered thickly. Those were all the words I could get out. Then I started to cough, and I couldn't say anything for a minute. But I could see the look that came on Dad's face, and I remember thinking he must have been in a lot more pain than I was right then. I had kind of a hazy feeling that maybe he and I weren't getting along very good, but I was too spaced out to remember why. Then, before I could get it all figured out, his face suddenly sort of crumpled. He turned and started to run towards the truck. I couldn't understand it all. Why was he running away? It seemed like I'd been in this scene before somewhere. I just kept wondering what I'd said to make Dad run from me. I noticed that he ran sort of funny. Maybe he'd been drinking. Maybe that was why he didn't understand. I don't know how much time passed before the ambulance came. It seemed like forever, but I can't remember any more that happened in that time. I stayed sort of semi conscious. It was a weird feeling, as if I could bring myself fully awake if I really tried, but it was safer not to. The next thing I really remember is catching a glimpse of a big gray building and then a sign that said emergency entrance. Then someone flung open the doors and we were at the hospital. It was then that I started to panic. I'd known all along that I was hurt pretty bad, but I'd still been mostly in control, feeling I could handle whatever was happening to me. But now, inside the hospital, I was out of my territory. They could do whatever they wanted to me, and one thing for sure, they didn't have to do something about that hunk of bone sticking out of my leg, and that meant surgery. They were going to put me to sleep. I should have been glad. My leg was nearly killing me now, and getting knocked out should have been the greatest thing that could happen to me. But there was something way back in my memory, something about waking up in a hospital. If only I could think a little clearer, I'd remember what it was. They'd given me some kind of a shot on the way in. It was supposed to be a painkiller. It was doing a lousy job. What it was doing was fogging up my brain so I couldn't think straight, and the harder I tried to think of what was so bad about waking up in a hospital, the farther away the answer seemed to get. What I wished most was that these people would all get out and leave me alone. I felt rotten enough without them flapping all around me, cleaning me up, taking my blood pressure, putting on band-aids, and who knows what else. If an animal gets hurt, it just crawls into a quiet spot and either dies or gets better alone. Animals aren't so dumb as they're made out to be. I closed my eyes and tried to pretend I wasn't even there. I must have done a good job of it. The next thing I heard was these two guys, doctors, I guess, standing there talking about me like I was dead or 100 miles away. I thought he was scheduled for surgery right away. He is, but we're holding off a little, waiting to see if we can get parental consent. You mean the parents won't give it? Parents, singular, mother's dead. The father hasn't showed up yet. Is he aware of the accident? Oh, he's aware, all right. Apparently, he and the kid had some sort of run in before the kid took off and smacked his motorcycle head on into a car. The father showed up the scene and of the accident just long enough to find out the kid was alive. Then he took off. Nice guy. Yeah, if you like drunks. The ambulance attendant said he was bombed out of his mind when he ran out on the kid. Now I'm remembering. I couldn't stop, but I didn't want to remember. I couldn't handle remembering. I didn't know if it was going to happen. I didn't mean to freak out like I did. One second I was lying there half conscious, and the next I was sitting up screaming, "Stop it! Stop talking about me and do something. I can't take any more of this. Either let me out of here or give me something to knock me out. Just do something." If the orderly hadn't grabbed me, I think I'd have run out of that place, busted leg and all. But he was a big, strong guy, and even though he was real gentle with me, I didn't try sitting up again. Okay, we'll go without the consent. Get 'em ready. The kid's hurting too much to wait any longer. He was right, but he didn't know anything about hurting. He thought it was just my leg. I had another needle then, and this one really made me feel funny. "You'll be asleep in a minute," the nurse said. Then that old vague fear of waking up swept back over me. "Don't want to be asleep," I muttered. A far-away voice said, "Let her talk to him. It might help." Then someone squeezed my hand. I looked up. A hazy outline of a woman's face was floating above me. She had blonde hair, and she looked familiar. She was right there, brushing the hair out of my eyes with her cool hand, but her voice seemed to come from a long way off. "Take it easy, honey. It's going to be all right, I promise. Don't fight it. Just go to sleep." "Mom, how'd you get—" I ran out of energy, and my voice trailed off into nothing. "Shush! Don't talk. I'm here. That's all that matters." She squeezed my hand again, and I held onto hers like it was all that was left in the world. Darkness was wrapping itself around my mind, but I fought it off. There was something I had to tell her, something really important. Suddenly I remembered. "Mum," I said, but a whisper was all I could get out. She leaned closer to hear. "You gotta tell Dad I didn't mean it." There was more, but I couldn't find the words. The darkness was winning. I drifted deeper and deeper into the shadows until at last everything was just one big black shadow. And that's chapter 17.